Hello everyone, I'm Luciano Lustosa, Obsolescence Engineering in Alstom, France. I would like to talk to you today about the implementation of obsolescence management plans throughout the supply chain, from suppliers to your company as an integrator of complex systems down to your customers. We know that complex systems, they are made of thousands of parts from hundreds of suppliers. Each complex system, regardless the industry they belong to, such as defense, medical, aerospace, nuclear, and including rail, which is the company I work for. They are made of several parts, systems, and subsystems, everything getting connected together. So there is a big complexity and a huge participation of suppliers, and the obsolescence management must be taken into account because there is an individual contribution of each one of these suppliers to it. And to complexify things a little bit, we know that the technology life cycles of components to equipment to complex systems are not compatible. First of all, and this is the first thing to explain to our customer, is that managing obsolescence does not mean avoiding obsolescence from happening. They are not possible to avoid, they're inevitable. We are talking about component systems that have a component life of 3 to 5 years. These components are integrated in larger equipment and subsystems with life cycles as long as 10 to 15 years. And these equipments and subsystems, in their turn, are integrated in large and complex systems, such as railway and signaling systems, which should have a operational life of 40, 50 years even or more. So these incompatibility of components to subsystems to complete systems of different life cycles make the part of the explanation on obsolescence. They will happen inevitably. The difference between a good project execution is that you are managing it and you are anticipating and having a clear view of the problems that are about to happen. And customers may give you requirements that can be very vague, which is the origin of some problems, misunderstandings, and conflicts along the project execution. I have a few examples here on which your customer may say, like the contractor or you shall propose spare parts for a certain amount of years during a certain duration and time. When they say propose spares, do they mean that you should propose spare parts at any costs, at any lead times? Shall they be identical to the first ones? Can we redesign them if necessary? There are no clear definitions on it sometimes. Customers may say contractual shall manage obsolescence. The word managing obsolescence is also very vague because it may say obsolescence monitoring only, monitoring and alerts. It may mean monitoring, alerts, and resolution, but the resolution costs should be included in prices or not. So managing obsolescence, it's still not clear enough. It's just a broad definition of obsolescence management, but the deliverables are not clear in this case. And sometimes contractors may say, shall propose a replacement solution, but who is in charge of the development costs, the engineering costs, and the lead times that comes with? So these must be clearly specified from the customer to you before you start cascading such requirements down to your suppliers. So deliverables and milestones, what and until when, must be clearly defined in the contract. This is the starting point between you and your customer. So the problem of matching the requirements from the customer to you And from you to the suppliers, they rarely match. You need to check your exposure to the risk of obsolescence on what you need to deliver and what you're being delivered to. In a very basic example, imagine a project that takes, in this case, 20 years on execution, spares, and support, and the customer is requiring from you in the first years on obsolescence management. In the first years, you need to be in charge of resolution at your own costs on any obsolescence issue that happens. You are in charge of solving, and keep the obsolescence issues solved. Starting from a certain amount of time, you only need to provide alerts and propose solutions to your customer. This is the main contract between you and your customer. This is the main deliverables that you have, that you are committing to. But remember, your system is composed of several suppliers delivering to you parts of this system. So what you are obtaining from your suppliers in this case? Well, in this same example, for the certain amount of years, you are getting different deliverables from your different suppliers. I can bet on that. Very probably, some of them are aligned with your end customer requirements, proposing you solution included on the contract for any obsolescence issues. Maybe they are providing alerts after some years, after the end of deliveries and end of warranty. And maybe some of them, after the last delivery, they have no commitment at all with you on obsolescence management, no alerts. They can just discontinue the parts without obligation to send you any alert. And that's the moment when you see in the gap analysis on how much risk you are exposed to. In green, you will see the deliverables you are getting from your suppliers on which you are covered. So you are delivering the same thing that you are receiving, it's okay. But in red, you see all the risk you are exposed to, all the points where you need to deliver, but you are not getting any information from your suppliers. How can you deliver an obsolescence alert to your customer if the supplier of it is not giving you any information? So checking the risk exposure of obsolescence, it should be made in a concise and a clear document, which are going to describe after, that it's the obsolescence management plan. What is the problem, actually, of the poor obsolescence management planning? You are exposing yourself to not getting obsolescence alerts from your supplier because they are not committed to deliver this to you. If you are missing obsolescence alerts, you are equally missing opportunities to find solutions or still have the opportunity to have end-of-life stocks performing last time buys to constitute stocks of items about to become obsolete. And it leads to wrong, bad stock management. You may run out of stocks because parts became obsolete, or you may be overstocking because you are insecure, you don't know if the status of the parts are still obsolete or not, so you're buying maybe excess of stocks in some cases. It may lead also to expensive redesigns, because when you discover that a part became obsolete, it's already too late. And then you need to move to the most expensive and time-consuming part of obsolescence resolution, which is starting from zero with a redesign of a new part to be delivered. And it makes poor planning on when you are performing future system overhaul and upgrades, because you have no roadmaps and visibility coming from your suppliers. You don't know the status and the future planning of availability of your parts, so you cannot plan for future upgrades properly. And all these leads you to eventually contractual penalties and bad image as a company, as a obsolescence management professional, because you are not providing a clear view on obsolescence status to your customer and you cannot manage it properly. So when we talk about all these problems on mismatching of what you are getting from suppliers, what you are delivering to your customers, and not having a clear view, we talk about a big part of the solution, which is the implementation throughout the supply chain of a proper obsolescence management planning. What is this? It's taking into account all the risks and contribution of your suppliers, from suppliers to you as an integrator, down to your customer, which is requiring this information. The international standard IEC 62402 on its 2019 version gives a big importance to the establishment of obsolescence management plans on which you describe strategies, you identify and mitigate any risks of obsolescence through all the stages of product life cycle, from design to the manufacturing to the delivery and the in-service support. It defines all the requirements for implementation, and customers are more and more responding to these requirements and implementing these requests in new requests for quotations and specifications. What is a proper obsolescence management planning? I like to put it in a simplest way possible so we don't lose track of the simple view of identifying risks and knowing what to deliver, as I can show here. A proper obsolescence management planning starts with identifying the requirements, what you need to deliver to your customer. Then you identify what is composing your project in a structured product breakdown structure, everything that is part of your project. And then you go to performing a risk assessment in which parts and subsystems the risk of obsolescence is present, usually classified in terms of low, medium, and high risk of obsolescence. Once you know the parts in your project and you know which parts have a low, medium, or high risk of obsolescence, for each one of these parts, you will select an approach of obsolescence management for these parts, which can be reactive for low risk items. Reactive means doing nothing and reacting when the obsolescence occurs. So no monitoring, no advanced planning. You are focusing your attention on something else. And for the medium to high risk of obsolescence items, in this case, you move to a more proactive approach, which means taking special care from the design stages and implementation, performing a continuous obsolescence monitoring of the status of the part to be always sure that you detect the obsolescence alerts before it's too late to still look for a solution or constituting stocks. And also asking for agreements and commitments from your suppliers on everything that deserves a proactive approach. So this is the first filter we'll do. Everything we are talking about obsolescence management planning is to focus on items deserving a proactive approach. And finally, when you have the initial requirements and how you're planning to do that, you move to the final step, which is execute, monitor, and record. We're talking about the deliverables on obsolescence management planning. An obsolescence management plan is not a document that needs to be set up in the beginning and then forgotten. It's a living document, and it's a support for your continuous process of obsolescence management planning throughout the life of your project. Well, an obsolescence management plan, this document, it's a description on how you're putting into place your resources and processes to achieve a certain goal. It starts, as I said before, by listing the project requirements, what the customer is asking to you in terms of requirements, scope, and for how long. We are talking about milestones here. It starts by defining what you need to deliver, what you are going to deliver in terms of monitoring, alerts, reports, in some cases, even the obsolescence treatment, if included in contract. So you are reporting and delivering obsolescence resolution and information on these. And in some cases, it may include even the components that became obsolete, about storage and level of stocks monitoring and reports on that. So it's what the customer is asking to you, what you are delivering, and in between, we have the how you are going to achieve that. In this document, you define, going one by one as a checklist, actually, roles and responsibilities. Who does what in your organization? Who is in charge of doing such tasks? You are defining the PBS, the product breakdown structure. You are listing in a hierarchical way all the parts and subparts composing your project. Why this? Because you are going to perform a risk assessment in each one of these parts to identify where the risk is low, medium, or high, and then finally, which parts will deserve a proactive or a reactive approach on monitoring obsolescence on them. Once you have the list of parts composing your project and you identify where the risk is, you move to this core part in the obsolescence planning, which is the supplier's view. You are going to list all the suppliers for those products that may have high or low risk of obsolescence. And you start listing what you are going to ask from them and record what you are obtaining from them as guarantees. And then something very important will show up in this single document. It will be what you are committing to your supplier and what you are committing to your customer. And you see the gap on these. So this is either a header, a list of contents for an obsolescence management plan, and it can also be used as a checklist if your plan, regardless the format it has, if it contains all these items. And I don't forget here software development and maintenance tools, because obsolescence monitoring is not only for the product itself, but also for the complete environment of production, testing, and support of your product. If these parts become obsolete, you cannot support or produce your equipment anymore. So they must be monitored as well. Well, an obsolescence management plan, I would say it may be presented in two different formats, two different variations of such plans. It may have a product view or a project view. I will explain you that. Some suppliers or yourself may produce a document with focus on a product itself, regardless the project it will be used. It will have all the essential chapters that we saw in the page before: risk assessment, mitigation, proactive and reactive approaches, but it will focus on the product, not the project. It is a document intended to be used to any project you have. And it will have a very interesting description there, which is the product roadmap. It will describe until when, until which year you plan to give delivery of new equipment or delivery of spare parts, or until when you plan to deliver repairs and support for your system. So by any customer in possession of these milestones and roadmaps, you can see if it fits in a particular project or not. So this is a product focus obsolescence plan. It should not be a generic process description, but it should contain these roadmaps and visibility on risks and future end of deliveries for a product. This is a product obsolescence plan. And then you have a project view plan, which has the main basic parts as we saw before, but it's more project specific. It focuses on the deliverables specified in a given project, because a project may have some particularities that you need to address. So regardless the type of document, I would say that every top level big project which will have an obsolescence plan may be composed by products for sure, and each product may have one or several obsolescence plans. I like to see this hierarchical view of a project being composed of products for sure, each one with their own obsolescence plans. And taking this reasoning further, you need to make a risk assessment for the whole project you have. And for your project, your top level project, you need to start collecting the supplier contributions or different obsolescence management plans from your suppliers, only those supplying products with high risk of obsolescence, which we define as a proactive approach. So for the high risk items, you are getting obsolescence management plans, and even your suppliers may be doing the same thing through their sub-suppliers. Remember, it's a long supply chain. It goes on and on, probably. And if you're not getting a full obsolescence management plan, be sure to take at least commitments through your contractual clauses in terms of for how long they are going to deliver you alerts and reports on obsolescence, so you don't lose track on the availability of these products. And remember the low risk of obsolescence items. Well, for these products, as we need to focus on the high risk only, you don't need to require an obsolescence management plan from these. And going through the end, remember in the beginning that we saw all the customer requirements in terms of resolution and alerts for a certain amount of years. Remember that by requiring obsolescence management plans from your suppliers, you started to get a clear view on the, well, in this case, green part, when you are covered from supplier commitments through customer requirements. You are covered back to back. And the areas in red where you are navigating in the dark because you need to deliver, but you don't know the status of availability from your suppliers. Well, by establishing a chain of obsolescence management plans, you see the gaps, and maybe you can start working to improve this coverage. Maybe with this clear view, you can review your contracts and ask for an extended coverage and getting better in the coverage and reducing your risk. So when you get better visibility of risks, you know where to act and when to work with your suppliers to ask for more. This is when you know what you don't know, when you know what you are not getting guarantees, this is the starting point to improve. And then finally, going to the conclusion of this, I would like to say that A chain of obsolescence management plans are an effective way to know your commitments and milestones from you to your customer, but also from all your suppliers to you, and then make the gap analysis on where the risk is. We should focus on items with high risk of obsolescence only, those that we call, according to the IEC norm, to the proactive approach. And again, managing supplier commitments through the supply chain, it's essential. You cannot say that you are committing to your customers if you're not getting commitment from all those contributing to your system. In Alstom, we proactively work on supplier management and we establish obsolescence management plans. So please don't hesitate to come to us to any benchmarks for future improvement, compare our processes and place, or just to get more information. Thank you very much.